I'm going to do something that's going to be considered extremely controversial out there on the uncivil left. During the break, I grabbed my copy of Alexis De Tocqueville's Democracy in America. And he has a chapter that's actually entitled Despotism in Democratic Nations. I guess this will have to be censored, like Mark Twain. But while I can still read it, I want to read you a couple of paragraphs. You may want to turn up the volume. You may want to take notes. I may never be able to do this again. He says, in talking about despotism in democratic nations, he's talking about, I can't read the whole thing, but it's such brilliance. I seek to trace the novel features under which despotism may appear in the world. The first thing that strikes the observation is an innumerable multitude of men, all equal and alike, incessantly endeavoring to procure the petty and paltry pleasures with which they glut their lives. Each of them, living apart, is as a stranger to the fate of all the rest, his children and his private friends, a constituent to him the whole of mankind. And as for the rest of his fellow citizens, he is close to them, but he does not see them. He touches them, but he does not feel them. He exists only in himself and for himself alone, and if his kindred still remain to him, he may be said at any rate to have lost his country. Remember, this is despotism in democratic nations. Above this race of men stands an immense and tutelary power, which takes upon itself alone to secure their gratifications and to watch over their fate. That power is absolute, minute, regular, provident, and mild. It would be like the authority of a parent if, like that authority, its object was to prepare men for manhood, but it seeks, on the contrary, to keep them in perpetual childhood. It is well content that the people should rejoice, provided they think of nothing but rejoicing. For their happiness, such a government willingly labors, but it chooses to be the sole agent and only arbiter of that happiness. It provides for their security, foresees and supplies their necessities, facilitates their pleasures, manages their principal concerns, directs their industry, regulates the descent of their property, and subdivides their inheritances. What remains but to spare them all the care of thinking and all the trouble of living? Thus it every day renders the exercise of the free agency of man less useful and less frequent. It circumscribes the will within a narrower range and gradually robs a man of all the uses of himself. Very uncivil, this De Tocqueville. The principle of equality has prepared men for these things. It has predisposed men to endure them and often to look on them as benefits. After having thus successfully taken each member of the community into its powerful grasp and fashioned him at will, the supreme power then extends its arm over the whole community, covers the surface of society with a network of small, complicated rules, minute and uniform, through which the most original minds of the most energetic characters cannot penetrate, to rise above the crowd. The will of man is not shattered but softened, bent and guided. Men are seldom forced by it to act, but they are constantly restrained from acting. Such a power does not destroy, but it prevents existence. It doesn't tyrannize, but it compresses, invenerates, extinguishes, and stupefies a people, till each nation is reduced to nothing better than a flock of timid and industrious animals, of which the government is the shepherd. Alexis de Tocqueville, he adds, I have always thought that servitude of the regular, quiet, and gentle kind, which I have just described, might be combined more easily than is commonly believed with some of the outward forms of freedom, and that it might even establish itself under the wing of the sovereignty of the people. Uh-oh. Maybe I shouldn't read this. The guys at MSLSD, their heads will explode if they haven't already. Our contemporaries are constantly excited by two conflicting passions. They want to be led, and they wish to remain free. As they cannot destroy either the one or the other of these contrary propensities, they strive to satisfy them both at once. They devise a sole, tutelary, and all-powerful form of government, but elected by the people. Uh-oh. I'm going to continue to plow ahead here, folks. They combine the principle of centralization and that of popular sovereignty. This gives them a respite. They console themselves for being in tutelage by the reflection that they have chosen their own guardians. Every man allows himself to be put in leading strings because he sees that it is not a person or a class of persons, but the people at large who hold the end of his chain. Such talk. By this system, wrote Alexis de Toqueville, the people shake off their state of dependence just long enough to select their master and then relapse into it again. A great many persons at the present day are quite contented with this sort of compromise because administrative despotism and the sovereignty of the people, and they think they have done enough for the protection of the individual freedom when they have surrendered it to the power of the nation at large. This does not satisfy me. The nature of him I am to obey signifies less to me than the fact of extorted obedience. Then he goes on, if you want to read Alexis de Tocqueville, Democracy in America, I strongly encourage it. Mark, you didn't read the other stuff, and that's the end of it. No, I'm not reading the whole book. It's hundreds and hundreds of pages of genius. But I'm one of the few that's read any of it. Certainly on the air. Alexis de Tocqueville. What do you think they would call him today? Alexis de Tocqueville. Writing such uncivil stuff like that. Well, I think they would condemn him today as they have condemned the Founding Fathers.